your attention, please?
I think it is a good idea.
Dreams without goals.
People are getting fed up with corporate America.
I want you to get up, stand up, fight back, ask what you can do for your country.
Don't call it a comeback.
No New Lines. This is the No New Lines podcast. Good morning, everybody. We got a full house. Kevin's here. How you doing, my man?
I'm great. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How's life going at JDog Junk Removal?
It's been super interesting this year so far.
Meaning what?
Meaning it's time to it's been time to reinvent and realize that junk removal is amazing. And it's ancillary to what I want to do, which is construction project management services, which we've kicked off successfully in January, February. I'm happy to say.
That's a lot more interesting, huh?
It is a lot more fun.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, but not to knock it. You need the junk gone as well. So
so for people that are listening that might not know, just kind of give us a breakdown of the company. What does the company do and all that, and then we'll jump into the fun stuff.
Sweet. Yeah. So JDog Junk Removal and Hauling Tampa Bay. That is the franchise, the local franchise that I own. It's a veteran-owned franchise started in Pennsylvania. I'm a veteran. I would say the majority of my staff currently are veterans as well. And we're on a mission to empower veterans with employment, military spouses, military family members, serve our local community, and then protect the planet with eco-friendly disposal, all while using the military values of respect, integrity, and trust.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's pretty.
Very cool.
You've got the pitch down at this point, my man.
You remember when I was stumbling over that about three years ago? Yeah. Yeah. I think I got it out that day, but I was sweating the whole time. So
yeah, no, you got that down. So the eco-friendly disposal, what is that? Explain that real quick.
Well, especially in a state like Florida, which is good and bad. It doesn't have a lot of regulations up north. There's a lot more regulations up there. So eco-friendly disposal is more mandatory like it is in California, New York, Pennsylvania. Down here, it's something that we brought that mission to ensure that we're not just taking debris and dumping it at a landfill. You're never going to have a project that JDog stamping, our brand on where, obviously no illegal dumping, right?
Right.
Yeah, not to say that that's not happening, but
Not that we know of.
Don't get our podcast in trouble.
Yeah, right.
Okay?
No.
We had a scare a few weeks ago.
Right? Oh, I'm sure. Is that where it was more R-rated, that one?
Yeah, that one was, yes. That was a crypto podcast.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Listen,
turned into a bit of an infamous podcast.
Password protected
Yeah,
immediately.
we'll get into that after the
listen.
mics
If
are off.
you guys are looking for a sectional, I can send you a place up in Newport Richie where I am. There's plenty of them.
Yeah, right.
So Kevin, can you give me I'm a total layman. I don't understand any of this junk removal stuff. Can you give me an example of what would be a standard bad practice, and then what you would do as a good practice to avoid that, and how it would be advantageous to your clients?
100%. That's a great question. So I'll give you two examples. I'll give you a residential example and a commercial example.
Okay.
Residential, somebody's moving out of their home. It's been their forever home, whether they're downsizing, maybe it's the kids that are helping their parents downsize, right, into an ALF or an ILF, and they've got a bunch of stuff, right? And all of this stuff has value to who, right? They think it has value, but then they find out quickly, especially with COVID, that there's not a lot of donation places that are taking stuff right now. If it's not absolutely pristine, plastic wrapped, brand new, etc., they're not coming to get it. So a company like mine, what separates me from the rest is the other companies would come in, they'd put all that stuff in the truck and they would take it to the landfill. Maybe they're lucky and the waste to energy plant is open and at least something is happening with the stuff. My company, we're going to be segregating and sorting on site. We're going to be separating all of the scraps, all of the couches, anything that we can find into its base materials. Now, what does that mean? Specifically a couch. Couch has metal, it has wood, and it has textiles and fabrics, right? So we are breaking those things down. We're separating them and making sure that they end up where they need to end up so that they can be properly recycled. So on a commercial site, you've got construction debris. A lot of guys are just dumping all their trash in there. You've got concrete, you've got drywall, et cetera, et cetera. We're making sure that as we're taking these things down, we're segregating them and making sure that the trucks that are coming to pick this stuff up only has, like materials in it so that we're making sure that they also go where they need to go.
It's phenomenal.
So do you separate the bodies from the concrete, or do you leave everything together?
We usually wrap them in carpet first.
All right, it's just,
We don't do that. If anyone's
I got
listening.
cousins that are in the trash removal business, so
Yeah. Well, it did.
I
start
know a
up
little
north.
bit about that stuff.
So what's the most interesting thing you've ever came across in this business?
Interesting is a very ambiguous term there,
Yeah.
so I can go two ways with this.
Go wild with it, my man. Go nuts.
Go the other direction. What's the most frightening thing you've ever
Yeah,
found?
Right.
yeah.
So
Okay,
so
let's go
yeah,
that way.
yeah,
Just
that's
go
so-
nasty.
both.
Whatever you do, just go nasty.
We'll start with frightening. One of the first jobs I ever went on was a hoarder house clean out for a gentleman. I don't know if he passed or what. All I know is the landlord called us and said, "Hey, I need someone to come and do a clear out." And he did warn us. He says it's pretty nasty. Well, that was not a great description compared to what we actually walked into. We walked into, we pulled up to this beautiful little cottage in Wesley Chapel. The yard was super manicured. Gorgeous.
That's how it all
So I was
starts.
like, wow, this is fantastic. Like, what are they talking about here? We go to open the front door. We can't physically open the door, so we have to kick the door open, which is why having veterans on your team always comes in handy. We got a door kicker or two on my crew currently, and we like to keep it that way. And when they're not there, I don't mind putting my boots on either, right? So we open the door, and there is, I would say, 12 to 18 inches of honey bun wrappers, Diet Coke bottles, cigarette butts, overall trash. But that was like the main things you're seeing between the trash and wait for it, poop everywhere. Everywhere.
The bouquet had to be off of the
Everywhere.
Off of the
And,
smelter.
and listen, and the good news,
Not-
news is he wasn't diabetic.
Maybe that's what happened to him in the end, you know?
Right.
So, and then we're looking at it and we're like, well, the good news is it's not human poop. I guess if that's good news. And we
I
finally,
think that's good news. I would take that as
Yeah,
good. I would be
we
more
did.
comfortable with dogs.
They'd have eaten more healthy stuff than
Yeah,
the humans.
right.
Yeah.
So you say dogs, right? Yeah. So we talked to the neighbor halfway through the day, and they said, "Man, we're so glad you guys are here, this and that or whatever." And I go, "So what's up with all the poop?" And they go, "Oh my God, is that where the poop is going?" And we were like, "What are you talking about?" They said, "Oh, well, they raised goats." And we were like, "Goats?" They're like, "Yeah, they raised goats." And the yard was manicured and gorgeous because the goats would eat all the grass. Maybe they would have some droppings, but they were coming into the house to go to the bathroom. It was their literal litter box.
And if I was there with you, I'd go, nah, really? Come on.
Yeah.
I guess they managed all of the outhouse affairs in-house.
Yes. Right?
Unbelievable.
So I'm gonna actually with that same story, the flip on it is the entire house was trashed except for one closet. We opened up the closet and inside it was absolutely gorgeous inside. And what was it? It was the biggest knife collection I've ever seen in my life. Where I actually I took one souvenir, and it is a authentic, if you can call it authentic, Indiana Jones machete with a leather case. And I still have it to this day. It sits right by my bed. And,
so
Were
weird.
you supposed to have that knife? Because this is live on camera. I just want.
What's it? I think
Okay.
because it's considered like a souvenir.
All right.
You
Just
know?
don't want you to get you in trouble. That's
No,
all.
no. I don't even know if it's sharp or not. And I didn't check, right? Wink, wink.
So was this house abandoned then?
At that point, it was. Yeah, I didn't get the full story, but I'm assuming there was some sort of mental illness involved.
It's so
unfortunately.
crazy when you go into places like that because you just immediately start to think, like, what was this person's life like?
You do.
You know,
It
what
brings you
was-
to their place, too.
Yeah, you know. I mean, that's clearly
It's-
not somebody that's in a good place.
Right.
You know.
They probably thought they were Robinson Crusoe out there.
At least
living
the
in the outdoors, herding goats, living in a cave.
Yeah.
Right.
At least the ghost shit's easy to pick up. It's not like dog poop. It's kind of like pellets, like rabbits. So
Yeah.
you're all set with that one.
Yeah, well, the poop was much like my guys when we first walked in. It was petrified,
Yeah.
so it was. It
First
was.
they were afraid.
Yeah, thank
They were
God.
petrified.
What do you guys got going on as far as, commercial projects and stuff like that? Anything lately that's kind of like, that was a cool one, or?
My favorite commercial job we did last quarter is another veteran-owned business, Ticonomus. It's a company that specializes in working with the Department of Defense to help build spy equipment. Right? So really cool.
That's got to be really cool.
And I'm not allowed to talk about it any more than that. No, I'm just. So, anyways,
Just tie him to the chair.
Yeah, right. He has a building in Safety Harbor and wanted to expand and found this awesome 6,000 square foot building that needed to be completely gutted to 4 concrete walls. It was one of the biggest commercial projects we took on. He was a veteran-owned business, heard about me through B&I, contacted me, and started slow. We ended up doing way more than just getting it to the walls. We helped rip the roof off. We did a lot of really interesting stuff. Yeah, 6,000 square foot of roof. The roof was probably
Flat
30
roof?
to 50 years old. Flat in areas, and I only say that because where the roof had structural integrity issues, instead of fixing it, they would just put sandbags and plywood, and then sandbags and plywood. So there was areas where the roof was maybe the appropriate 8 inches, and then there was other areas where we were dealing with 18 inches of sand up there that we were trying to get
That's
down.
incredible.
It was when my now demo crew chief, it was his first job that he came on board with. He was
Throw
a
him in the
Marine.
deep end.
Yeah, he was a Marine. I'm Army. He actually said, "Is this payback?" Right out of the gate. And I was like, "No, man. I just want to see what you guys are made of. That's all." And I'm happy to say that he kicked ass, and we got that done, and that has now turned into us expanding our services outside of just working with contractors on residential remodels where we do a lot of work, and now we're doing a lot more work
Now,
with commercial.
do you guys drop the containers? Is that what you do?
Yeah, we have containers that we drop.
You
and-
drop and then you pick them up.
Yep.
Have you heard of bully bags?
I have not.
My friend's he's one of the sales managers for the country.
Oh, I'd love a referral.
Bully bags are these huge bags, and it's like the container, but they're much easier to fit in cooler spaces, and then they just pick them up and take them away.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's the latest thing. He's selling these things to everybody's buying them. So
Yeah, it sounds a lot cheaper than owning a huge dumpster.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, but the dumpster's got a place.
It does.
It
They
gives
moved.
a sense of permanence.
Yeah, they
So-
moved all the drop zone obstacles from here to
Oh, cool.
to the range last time, and that was God, that would have been 2 trips, 3
no, it was
trips,
three
3
trips.
Yeah.
So speaking of sand, while you were talking about sand, I have a friend that lives up in New Jersey when we had that bad hurricane 5 years ago.
Yep.
And everything got ruined. So he has a beach house.
Was that Sally?
Yeah, it was something like that.
Sandy.
Sandy.
Speaking of sand.
Get it? Sandy.
They probably
So-
needed sand after the sand got blasted off
So
the beach.
he sent me a picture, and I go, oh Jesus! I said, what is that, new carpet? It was sand. There was 4 feet of sand in his beach house. Wow. Inside.
Was it on purpose?
No, they did it by accident. It was from the storm.
It was from the hurricane. It blasted.
Well, no, there's
the
that
house
one
with sand.
Seinfeld episode where Kramer decided to put sand in his apartment. Remember?
Yep.
What is wrong with you?
He's bringing the beach to himself.
And
right? Yeah,
in
or
other
something like
news,
that.
the beach is actually now a cologne. I wonder if the Seinfeld crew is getting rights on that right now.
I like the one who's hitting golf balls on the beach and ends up in the Will's blowhole.
Yeah.
And George goes a marine biologist. Oh my God,
The
it's
sea
so
was
funny.
angry that day, my friends.
Yeah,
like
it
an
was
old
funny.
man ordering soup from a deli.
That's hilarious.
So the transition from doing the junk removal to the contracting stuff. How is that going? Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Lessons learned so far. All that good stuff.
Why I'm doing it, COVID. And not just COVID. COVID fast forwarded my plan. So junk removal and an amazing veteran-owned brand like JDog, it just made sense, right? I actually didn't buy into the company originally. I was brought on board to help them grow the Tampa Bay market because of my local, the Rolodex that I have, which they thought was hilarious. They said it was one of the reasons why they hired me. There was 3. It was the hat that I was wearing, which the hat.
We know the hat.
And then
It was on the whiteboard.
Yep.
Yep.
2 was I said the word Rolodex in the interview, and they said, did this kid just say Rolodex? And I was like, yeah, well, I'm not a kid, first off. But, yeah. And then 3rd, obviously, was my degree, which is sustainability management. So I have a focus on running green businesses, but I minored in sustainable construction because of my history with working in construction. So it was always kind of headed that way, where I wanted to be an eco-friendly or a green project manager in construction. So with COVID, junk removal, even though we were an essential service, junk removal, people didn't want you in their homes. All the contractors completely shut down, for a very long time. and I had to find new ways to keep the business alive. So I said, well, I guess we're fast forwarding this process. And thankfully, I had some of these big projects like the veteran with the commercial building who allowed me to run that and get my feet wet in that area. So how's it going, you asked? Is the second part of that? Really well. I currently have over 20 contractors that contact me that only use us for demolition. And through those 20, I have about 6 now that I'm actually running projects for.
Wow, very cool.
That's phenomenal.
Plus, I think it's wicked commendable that you're doing this with the veterans, because we all know the stories about these guys that fight for the country and then they can't get benefits, or just horror stories. It's unbelievable that this country turns their back on a lot of these guys, and they really aren't taken care of the way they should be.
It's true.
So I think it's awesome what you're doing. I really do.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
So when you were in the military, were you an engineer when you were in the military, or were you a combat veteran, or what did you do? What was your function?
Yeah, I am a combat veteran. I went to Iraq in 2009-10.
Okay.
And my MOS was preventive medicine. So preventive medicine is disease and non-battle injury.
Okay.
It is the catch-all for anything that can harm a soldier, a contractor, or anyone that's an ally. It's the catch-all to make sure that anything that is not a bomb or a bullet is my responsibility, right? So think of like the medic is, somebody gets injured in the field and they go to the cache. Well, we are a detachment from the cache. A cache is a combat support hospital. And what we do is we're pretty much inspectors. So I did have a gun, and I had it on my back, but what my weapon truly was my brain, a pencil, and a clipboard, right? So I had to go around, and we did everything from food sanitation checks, water, soil, air, base camp assessments, regulated medical waste, nuclear waste, landfills, you name it, anything that could possibly, leishmaniasis, which is like sandflies, and you would hear about all these things where people are getting
Sand fleas.
Yeah, sandflies, right? And they were like getting bit, and there's all sorts of other things that are out there that can hurt a soldier. So I had to learn entomology.
Yeah.
I had to take a whole class on entomology on cockroaches and mosquitoes, and I can identify a mosquito. Just by looking at it, like we would go and catch mosquitoes. We would then separate the mosquitoes that are not vectors, and then we would bottle the ones that were and send them to the CDC so they could test them to see if there was any sort of potential for outbreaks.
Did you pull the wings off as you were?
Yeah, and then you make a wish at the end.
And it's a lot easier for people to get sick when they're living in really close quarters, like you are when you're in the military and you're on duty. So
for sure, and that was one of the inspections,
job.
was to make sure that they're not living in those close quarters unless they absolutely had to. And when they did, there's rules on how they have to be positioned. And it was my job to I want to say I took this position because there was one of two. They said, hey, you got a great score on the ASVAB. You can do whatever you want. I go, well, what are the 2 best? And they go, well, the 2 hardest ones to get into are military intelligence. We all know what that is, right?
Yeah.
And then the other one is preventive medicine. And I said, well, what is that? They go, well, it's a 68 Sierra is the MOS code. My daughter, who I was fighting to keep in my life at that time, her name is Sierra.
Oh my God!
So I just said, "Oh, fuck it."
Yeah. It's a sign.
That's a sign.
And I was thinking also preventative medicine. Yeah. Oh, I'm not going to be anywhere dangerous.
But the whole
little did I know that
biohazards.
Little did I know that my job literally meant for 2 weeks out of the month, me and one other soldier who ended up becoming my wife, which is a whole other story.
This gets better as time goes on.
Talk about close quarters.
So we ended up we would be on the big base for 2 weeks, and we would do 2 weeks of inspections because that's how many. There was like 25,000 soldiers there. And then for the other 2 weeks, I would be on MRAPs and Blackhawks, bouncing from base to base to base because we had to physically put eyes on every soldier to make sure they had what they needed. Like we'd show up to a base with 60 infantrymen, and I'd say, hey guys, what do you need? And they're like, man, if you don't get us some bug spray, I swear to God, right? And literally, it was just me, my pencil, my clipboard.
Right.
We'd write it up because they could not get anything shipped to them unless we signed off on it.
Right.
We had once a water tank that we showed up. We arrive in a Blackhawk. We get there, and this never happens, mind you. The mayor's there, so you're talking about a full bird colonel, right? His XO, which is a major. We're talking about really high up ranks, and I'm a specialist, right?
People that are high up enough to eat bougie meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the officers' mess. Right?
Exactly, and that's exactly where I'm going with this. I don't know how you know that, but it's funny. So we get off, and we're greeted by them. They're like, "Hey, Specialist Hasney," and they're shaking my hand. I'm like, "What are we doing? Hi, sir.
Right.
What's going on?" Right? And they're like, "Oh, hey, go ahead and drop your stuff, and we've got this immediate issue we need you to look at right now," because they requested us to come in. So we go drop our stuff. We get taken in a golf cart of all things from the XO, which is a major. He's like, "Oh, we're so glad you're here. This and that. We've got the great dining facility, and there's all these fun activities." And I'm like, "What's going on right now? We're in Iraq in a combat zone. And we're being treated like we're at a resort, right?" And sure enough, we come up and there's this big, huge water tank. It's a 20,000 gallon water tank, giant. And they're like, "Hey, we need you to inspect this immediately." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, that was on the schedule for tomorrow, but we can do it now." So we get up there, we inspect it, and as we're inspecting it, there's this line of officers in their PTs holding towels. And they've got their shower bags and their shower shoes on, and the line just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger as we're inspecting this water tank. It takes us 20, 30 minutes to inspect it. They said, "Is it good to go?" And I go, "Yeah, it's good to go." So we sign off on it. They grab the paper from me. They rush to the talk. And next thing you know, this huge tanker comes in with water that had been sitting outside for, I guess, a week. And they couldn't bring the water in legally until I, a specialist in the military, signed off that this fucking water tank was legit.
Oh my God.
Right, was ready for, yeah. So, needless to say, for the rest of our, I think, 48 hours there, we just were in the MWR chilling, watching movies, and eating amazing food. We had lobster, we had crab legs, we had steak. I'm not shitting you. This is my wife will attest to this.
You
now.
were
She
like
was
in
right
a 5-star resort.
Yeah,
You're a
it was,
hero.
yeah. And every time we went back there, they were like, "Hey, Hasney, what's up?" It was just, it was
Oh,
amazing. Yeah. So
That's
What do you
incredible.
guys need? Alcohol, weed, cigarettes? What do you
Right.
Well, this is certainly interesting how this transitioned from just picking and hauling shit away to
right from inspecting
what
it.
life is
Yeah.
what life is really like on the outside.
Yeah.
So what made you decide? Could you have gone with an officer track where you could have gotten yourself into that position over
100%.
time? What made you decide to return to civilian life as opposed to continuing on with the military?
Children. My wife, we'll jump into this story. We were good friends. She was going through a divorce. I was going through the classic failed engagement while deployed. At the same time, my battle buddy, Ruiz was her last name. She was going through a divorce, and we were just amazing friends the entire time. And right at the end of the deployment, we demobbed back at Fort Lewis in Seattle. Which is beautiful. If you've never been to Seattle, holy crap! Oh my God, it's in Mount Rainier and all of that, right? Yeah, it was.
sister lives up there.
Yeah.
She's lived up there for about 15 years.
wow.
Bring a rain jacket.
Yeah. It never rained my entire week I was there.
Me either.
It was like in May.
Yep.
I think
They said
a little bit of good weather.
we were like, "What is everyone talking about? Seattle's gorgeous." It was like 70 degrees all the time with a breeze, and it never rained. They're like, "Yeah, that's for the 2 months that you're here right now demobbing. Come back for the other 10 months, right?" So long story short, we got some leave, and our whole detachment went out, and one thing led to another after being with the same person, and it's now legal to be with each other. I think the feelings were already kind of growing. You can't spend 365 days with a beautiful Latina woman who is just smart and brilliant. And,
Yeah.
And,
I think you should turn this into a TV show, a sitcom.
So you got out of the military, right?
Yep.
How long before you got after you got out of the military until you started JDog? How long was that? Until you got going with JDog?
No, years. I was
Years.
getting my bachelor's degree. I originally was going to do exactly what he asked. Am I going to become an officer? So I was in the Army Reserves now.
Right.
I was going to school full time. I was pre-med. So I was heading on that track to become a physician's assistant. And during that course, I realized that I needed to work. So I got a job at Pinellas Career Source Tampa Bay. They have a position called the Local Veterans Employment Representative.
Okay.
And that the position entails of connecting small businesses with veterans, and then connecting both of them with grant money that can help the veteran get started and on their feet, as well as grant money that can go to the businesses, which it still exists. So if you have never heard of this, please look it up.
What's the name of it again?
The local Veterans Employment Representative.
Okay.
Career Source Pinellas, Career Source Tampa Bay.
Gotcha. Good resource.
Yeah, huge resource. So I did that for a little bit. They quickly realized that was a state position working for a nonprofit agency, which is Career Source.
Right.
That they wanted me to do more, so they quickly transferred me from that to running one of the local one-stops business services departments, and I did that for 3 years. I was helping businesses connect with everything from people who are unemployed to running the Talents of Tampa Bay, which was a position where you only allow people in this group that were making at least $50,000 a year or more in a supervisory position, and you're trying to help them connect to businesses, right?
Okay.
So I did that for years and graduated. We ended up separating, and I went and helped my brother-in-law start his handyman business, which is now A to Z Services, multi-skilled tradesman. And during that time, I we didn't outgrow each other. It was just he was heading one way and I wanted to do something else. I told my wife, hey, it's October. I'm going to just hang out with the kids for a couple of months. And in January, I'll go put that suit on. She said, that's hilarious. You're going to get a part-time job. And I begrudgingly that night went online and I applied to like 50 different jobs. One of them was a crew chief to work for JDog, which is they brought the franchise from Pennsylvania here to start it. And I was like, a crew chief? I was like, I could do that with my eyes closed. Like that sounds great.
Right.
So I apply. I'm a little bit of a jackass here and just sent them my resume the way it was. And they're looking at this resume running $1 million budget, in the military, has, 20 different certifications. And they're like, you're not going to be a crew chief. We actually haven't released this yet, but we're looking for somebody to run all of Tampa Bay to help us grow this thing out. So hence the story, the interview.
Gotcha.
Hat, Rolodex, and degree.
And then shortly after that, you decided to...
They decided they still own the Pennsylvania territory.
Right.
They decided to step aside, and they were having a child, and they didn't want to grow it out anymore. The investors said there was a before Kevin and after Kevin. The old owner said the same thing. They said, "How about with just sweat equity, you come in and become a partner?"
That's
and
great.
Then since then, now I'm
So what are some of the, since you've jumped into this crazy ass world of entrepreneurship, small business owner, long hours, what are some of the lessons? What are some of the things you kind of have learned, if you will?
There's a lot.
I mean, there's a lot of them, but like recently, what's, you know what I mean?
Oh man. Once know your lane. That's the biggest one, especially when you're growing a business, is don't try and say yes to everything. Just because you can do it doesn't mean your team can. If you have a product that you're growing out, stick to what your lane is. So I'll give you an example. When we were starting to make that transition into project management, there's a lot of things that, legally, under a general contractor, basic labor can do. So just because you can do those jobs does
not mean you should.
Right.
Yes.
So we now have scaled back. JDog Junk Removal and Hauling is really focusing on what the brand is. The brand is, debris removal, junk removal, general basic labor, and some light selective demolition. Selective demolition.
So you're not installing windows.
No.
And putting up crown molding.
No. But what I've realized is as I have that in a lane, I can now keep that ancillary to the project management services and really focus on process there, because that's all that is making sure that you have a good process, you have, keeping your timelines, making sure that your projections are on point, making sure that when they're not, you're changing them.
How often, because this is just a never-ending battle for me, how often are you actually working on processes, would you say? I mean, I know everybody says every day, but how often are you like literally sitting down? Because we're always thinking about it, right?
That's a great question.
Yeah,
you're always thinking about it. And you're always thinking about it if you're smart and or you have the free time, right? Which
Right.
hilarious to say free time to any business owner. You could probably implement or at least brainstorm to implementation with with people. Don't ever just keep it in your head.
Right.
It's not happening if it's in your head, right? So
This is true.
that can happen a little bit more often. But when you've got both feet, working on your business and in your business, which is 4 legs, which that means you have 0 free time, right? That's 80, 100-hour weeks.
Yes.
It comes up with necessity. So I'll give you an example. We were having, we didn't have a time clock kind of like, punch in, punch out process. It was the demo crew chief and everyone would send a text message. The VP, would then get those messages converted into timesheets. And it's messy. Oh, this so-and-so forgot to send his text message. So-and-so forgot to do this. Oh, where's my hours? Yada, yada, yada. So in my head, I had known that Google Forms has a quick way to just create a form that you can put, like, here's the list of employees. This is the, what was your time in? What was your time out? Where'd you start? Where'd you end? Do you have any comments or notes for today? Like one
Interesting
note,
comments
one
accepted.
One note I got from the crew chief was, if I don't get some damn help soon, ... That was it. Which was good. I saw that. He didn't tell me, but he had the free will to say that. So my point is until there was, one too many errors in payroll due to this broken system, I didn't implement the actual new process, which was this thing that had been in my head for months and months and months, right?
Yeah, it's funny how that goes.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
I find the whole thing interesting because I know that if you focus on your strengths and give your weaknesses to other people,
Yep.
then you can, like for me, when I was doing everything by myself when I started. So the second year I hired a bookkeeper, and I grew my business almost $200,000 the next year. The third year I hired a warehouse person, and I went from $300,000 to almost $1.6 million, because I focused on what I did best: finding deals and selling them, buying and selling. That's all I did. Somebody else shipped it, somebody counted it in, somebody did all the paperwork. I'm not good at that shit. So if you really focus on your strengths, I think in a business, and turn all the other stuff, give the control over to somebody else. I mean, have guidelines and safety systems in there so you can check it out. But it's unbelievable how fast you can grow. Yep. And if you look at all the entrepreneurs that are really wicked successful, like the Phil Knights of the world, I always bring him up because I also have a cousin. He's a billionaire. They were great administrators. They looked for people that could do what they weren't good at, and hired the best people for those things. Nike still has an open door policy where if you have an idea, drop it in a box, and they look at everything, because you never know. It could be the person shipping a box out that has this phenomenal idea, and most companies don't want to hear anything about you.
Right.
They just want you to do your job and shut your mouth.
Yep.
But that idea could come from somebody that you would never ever suspect it. And bang! I mean, I used to love Ford when he'd be walking with somebody. He wasn't even. I don't think he was even high school educated. Did he even finish high school?
I don't think so.
And
I think that's
and
what
they
it is.
and they asked him a question, and he'd look right at them and he'd smile and says, "I can't answer that, but I'll have the answer for you within 24 hours." So he had himself surrounded by everyone that could answer anything that he needed to know about his business to make it better, or if somebody had a question. So I think that it just speaks volumes. Like I listened to your story, and it's a fascinating journey where you've been and how you did it. But the cool thing about you is that you're here and you did all this because you're open to it. Like there's a lot of people that just aren't open to shit.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure we've brought entrepreneurs in here, and I've been in business networking meetings, and some people are just so closed that they could be here,
Right.
but they're here. Like I always tell the story about the guy in the business networking group, and he was a financial advisor, and he used to be at Starbucks every day. So you go to Starbucks? He said, yeah. He says, well, how can I improve? So I get an idea. After you're done, go down to a sign company and spend $200, make a really cool sign that clips on the outside of your computer where you're working, and it just says free financial advice. He said, well, how that's going to help me? I said, well, you know something? It may not. But chances are you're going to have 1 million people stop by to introduce themselves to you. And if you get one who has an uncle that's got $50 million and they're looking for a new guy to come in and give them advice, or they refer you to 20 other people or whatever. If nothing else, think of the people you'll meet and the network that you'll create just by doing that. He couldn't see it.
Yeah.
He goes, that's not going to work. And everyone in the meeting's going, you're fucking kidding me, right? I mean, you could just tell by looking
Right.
at their faces.
Kevin's big on the networking thing.
Just like hit the guy with a ball peen hammer over the head and straighten him out, you know?
Oh yeah.
But he
100%.
he just couldn't get there. He just couldn't get there. And it's such a simple thing to do. You imagine if you were in Starbucks and you saw a little thing that says free financial advice and you were thinking of investing in something, and you went over and talked to the guy, and next thing you're having a conversation, and next thing you buy him a cup of coffee, and you have somebody that wants some advice, so they call you, and now you have a client.
Right.
I mean, it's simple.
It's genius.
It's simple.
Yeah, big thing I just heard out of what you said, a little bit earlier was, really knowing what your strengths are, and then surrounding yourself with people who, have the opposite strengths of you.
The opposite strengths.
And, that really speaks to the visionary, like executor, kind of, role. And I'm happy to say that, my VP, she literally has all the strengths that I don't have, and we blend so well in the middle.
You're like a match made in heaven.
Yep, she crosses the T's, dots the I's. She's the VP of operations.
Who is that?
Adrienne Brown.
Yep.
Yeah,
she's great.
She's absolutely amazing.
She's great.
Her background is crazy. She only works with me because of COVID, which is really crazy, right? She met our family in the 80s. My father hired her to help him launch the copy centers in Office Depot. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but back in the day, there was no copy center, there was no Kinko's, there was no UPS store. So there was either printers and distributors, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right? And, even like the data entry people were different, right? And all of that kind of stuff. So Office Depot had the idea of bringing a Xerox machine into their store and allowing any customer to make copies. And it was this giant, Xerox machine. My father was looking for a job, came in from New York, and said, I used to work for Doubleday Print. And he go, well, do you know how to work on this Xerox machine? And he said, sure. Right. I found out later he was like, yeah, I had to figure it out, but I knew enough to get by.
Right.
Well, that turned into him helping create the entire idea with a team of people over many, many lunches and dinners of the copy center, which has been carbon copied, pun intended.
It's in Staples, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
But they're
Right.
doing much more than copying.
Way more.
They're
Way
doing-
more.
everywhere.
They're doing
Yep.
artwork. They're
Yep.
doing
Really?
layouts. they're
Signs,
doing-
all
oh
of
my
that.
God.
I had
They
no
do
idea.
everything. They do
Adrian
everything.
actually was hired on by him.
Stick with
and
us, kid.
together they opened like almost 400 Office Depots across the country together. They separated and parted ways. They always kept in touch. And then when my father passed away, she randomly sent me a Facebook message a few years back and said, hey, I've been trying to find your dad. I had to tell her, hey, he's no longer here. I'm in Tampa. She goes, you're in Tampa? I'm moving to Gulfport. Right? So then we reconnected. We became friends. And then as I was going through the JDog journey, and then COVID hit, she was working in the business, financing, what is it called? Corporate banking. She was a big banker, right? With Wells
Gotcha.
Fargo and all these different things. And she said, hey, if you want some help, let me know. And that turned into her coming on board full time and helping
cool.
me launch all of this. It's been an amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So what are you trying to get done over the next 12 months? What's the vision? What's that one big goal that you're chasing?
Yeah.
What do you want to take down?
It's not so much of a takedown as more of me realizing that, just because you're given a model doesn't mean it's perfect. Like you said, it could be anybody that puts the improvement slip in the Nike box, right? So, I myself had to even look at my model and the franchise models and the different things I was doing and realize that I could do more with less. That very famous line, right?
Right.
So we are actually reinvented our company so that we could downsize our assets, reduce our brick and mortar space, become more virtual, which all speaks to my degree, sustainability management. I was, taught all of this for years. I have a green belt in Lean Six Sigma. I don't know if anybody knows what Lean Six Sigma is, but it's the combination of Lean created by Toyota and Six Sigma created by Motorola. The two process improvements that made these two companies behemoths in their fields, right? They've combined them together. And I then have taken, when I did my senior project, I took a sustainable outlook to Lean Six Sigma and created a sustainable Lean Six Sigma process. And I wasn't really implementing it with this company. I was sort of just going with the flow. So over the next 6 months to a year, it's going to be leaning up more, reducing defects in our processes, reducing overhead, and becoming even more eco-friendly.
That's awesome.
I heard you talking about entrepreneurs having time and 80-hour work weeks and all that. Well, since COVID hit, I've spoken to 2 or 3 entrepreneurs that are friends of mine. 2 of them are extremely successful. And I says, what's the one thing? They says, the one thing I've really learned is time management and to take time for myself.
Yeah.
They're riding their bikes. They're doing shit they never did before. And you know something? They're doing more business than they ever did before, because you have to have a balance.
Yeah.
You can't just run 80 hours a week and run, all over the place without having balance. And now they're working much smarter, and they've let go of shit that's not producing money for them, and they're much happier. It's
awesome.
unbelievable how much happier they are. They used to run wild and think they had to be working 12-hour days to get shit done. Then they started to delegate, and they started pulling out of stuff that wasn't making them money, and they're out in nature. They're bike riding, swimming, playing golf, fishing.
Frolicking.
It's like all this shit. Because-
Frolicking in the fields.
Yeah.
Yeah, with B and I have to.
Going through the tulips.
Yeah, with B and I have to do.
This is
a
not
lot
funny. This is serious shit.
I have to do a lot of one-to-one meetings, and I just, being the example now, I actually I scheduled a meeting somewhere where I can ride my bike now, and I try and schedule those so that I can ride my bike to those meetings. So
That's very cool.
I'm working and doing it at the same time.
But what a lot of people don't understand, the concept that they don't understand, once you put the groundwork in, okay? Like if he's working with a client, once he puts the groundwork in, if he just steps back and watches that happen, the universe always brings you what you already put into what you do.
Right.
It's so if you do the work up front, initially, it's like when I'm out and I have to sell shit. If I'm putting the press on, I don't sell anything. If I walk out and say, hey, what do you think of these? Do you like them? If you're interested, give me a call. I made the contact. I'm moving on. They call you. If you're there like, well, I can give it to you this price. I'm going to do this and do that. It's like they're not interested.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're pushing. It just, the universe doesn't work like that.
People have a natural aversion towards that stuff.
Yeah, it just, but it just works.
They do.
Once you put the time in, like I told him, I used to play guilt golf, and I used to go out and be on my phone all the time. My friend looked at me and said, what the fuck are you doing? Why do you even bother? Let me just give you a ride back to your car. I said, what are you talking about? He says, you're on your phone. Shut your phone off. I shut my phone off, went back to the office after playing golf and having lunch. I had an $80,000 purchase order.
Wow.
So after that, I never turned my phone on. I shut it off in the golf cart. And every time I go and I play golf, when I was I'm not playing right now, but when I was doing it, everything would just magically appear.
Yeah,
Because
anecdotal story to that. By the
I
way.
always put the shit. I did the work up front,
Yeah.
and then let the universe take over.
No,
and it's
literally.
magic. It's magical what happens.
A story that goes right with that is that I rode my bike to a meeting, and during that, the bike ride to the meeting, I stopped to get coffee, where a place that I never get coffee at. Turns out that the owner owns 3 restaurants and 2 other things, and we had a long conversation, and now we've got like 7 jobs coming out of that. You
Isn't
know
that
what I mean?
amazing?
Right, and I never would have gone
Hoorah.
there.
I mean, that's the
because
cool
I
part.
usually fly right past it on my
I
car.
get
Yeah.
chills. I get chills
Yep.
hearing
So you're
this
100%
I
right.
get chills hearing this shit because nobody ever talks about this.
Yep, about-
no one talks about it. They
it's-
just talk about, oh, you got to get up, you got to go 110 miles an hour, you
Yep.
got to do this, you got to do that. Well, you know something? You rode your fucking bike to a meeting, you ran into a guy just to have a cup of coffee,
Right.
and you got 7 jobs out of it.
Yep. Talk about putting the sign on the laptop, right? I was the sign. It's just the fact that I was
Now,
there.
it's Memorial Day weekend
Yep.
coming up. I was in Nantucket Memorial Day weekend. This is going back a long time ago. And I was just walking around, having a couple of drinks, and we partied all weekend long, had a ball. And I was walking down the street, and I saw this thing called Sammy's Nobby Shop. It was the Nobby Shop. So I walked in, and I says, hey, is the owner in? He says, no. He says, what do you need? I says, well, I'm just walking down the street. Just wondering, this is a big store. You got any shit you need to get rid of, a dump? Because I buy closeouts. So he looks at me and he goes, yeah, I'm Sammy, the owner. He was the owner. He goes, come with me. Takes me upstairs, this whole thing. There's like 3,000 pair of slim fit corduroys for kids.
Nice.
And there's like, he couldn't give them away in the United States for like 50 cents. So I took a couple of samples. I called my friend. We sold them somebody in Japan for $9.
Wow.
We paid $2 to him and sold them for $9. So it's just opening your mouth and just talking because you never know.
Yep.
And so many people miss opportunities like that. It's like being in a grocery store. When I first moved to Florida, I was in Fort Lauderdale, and there was a woman in the grocery store, and I looked at her, and I says, geez, her eyes really look familiar. And I was going to keep walking, and I says, excuse me, are you Maureen? And she nearly dropped dead from a heart attack. She used to be a food waitress, and I was a bartender at Houlihan's. I hadn't seen her for 37 years.
Wow.
Something told me I should just say hi to her. So we reconnected and had this unbelievable conversation.
That's amazing.
And it's just, yeah, I mean,
And then
I'm
what?
inspired by your story. And then what?
And then a little movie.
Danny just went speechless.
A slow violin.
Well, because you guys are going
Glass of
back.
wine.
You guys want to get back in the ho-ho product.
Back into the gutter.
Yes.
All right. Well, listen. I know you've got places you got to be at. All right. So we'll
Appreciate
get
that.
this wrapped up. If anybody's interested in working with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Really easily, Tampa at JDog.com. If you have projects, scopes of work, you just want to drop a line and make a connection, have a cup of coffee, that's a great way to get a hold of us. And if you want to reach us for some immediate services, 844-GET-JDOG. That's GETJDOG. 844-GET-JDOG.
Ooh, man, I really appreciate you coming in. Fantastic as always.
Thank you. I
Until
really
next time,
appreciate it.
everybody, make sure you subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff.
I like the fuzziness of my mic today.
We're gonna turn yours down.
Check, 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 check.